Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Dan from Fisher Jeep Adventures, and today we're going to go over the auxiliary battery system in the Jeep Rubicon. We have done a install video of the system, but since we changed the back of the Jeep, not only have we upgraded some of the safety features, but we relocated all of the stuff. So I'll post a link below of the original one so you can kind of see the contrast, and we'll try and filter some things in there so you can see what I'm talking about. So if this is something you're interested in, please stick around for the video. If you are a current subscriber, thanks for coming back. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and that way you can be notified of the next video. So let's get to it. All right guys, so the purpose of the auxiliary battery system for our Jeep is to power the refrigerator and to provide some power to auxiliary lighting and some other things in the back of the Jeep. So we'll start off with a kind of rundown of how we kind of have it set up. So we start off with a positive and negative battery feed. The negative connects to the frame ground and runs all the way to the back of the Jeep. The positive that makes the connection to the auxiliary battery runs off of a 50 amp Blue Sea fuse. It's connected to the battery cable. And then the cables now have sheathing that run all the way back to where the battery cables come in. So they travel down underneath the Jeep along the frame rail. So the battery cables come up from underneath through one of the floor plan drains, and they come up and they make connections to our battery system. Kind of looks like that. So what happens is the battery cables come in to a common bus bar here. And that is where the grounding of all of the elements come. The positive cable comes to the battery switch. And what this allows us to do is to connect and disconnect the charging source for the auxiliary battery. And from here, the battery cable runs down through that loom and then into our battery box. And that has again, a positive and a negative cable that receives power from our DC to DC charger. What you also see connected there are the fuses for the ARB compressor, which is supposed to be connected directly to the battery. So I just made a box. It's got a nice lid on it. So all of the negative runs through this battery shunt. And what that shunt allows us to do is it allows us to monitor the state of charge for the battery, what's being pulled off of it, how long the battery lasts. All that is communicated through the Victron energy panel. And so right now we're at 13.25 volts on the auxiliary battery. We have an infinite range left on it because there's nothing drawing off the battery right now. And so it's at 100%. There's no amps being pulled off of it, no watts, and back to the volts. So that panel gives us a lot of information about the state of our battery. Next to that panel is the DC to DC charger. What that does is it brings power in from the alternator, the small alternator on the battery, on the vehicle, and then converts that to a charge profile that's good for a lithium battery. So we have a lithium iron phosphate battery, 100 amp hour in that box, and then that powers our Blue Sea fuse panel, which sends power up to a Blue Sea distribution area where we have USB chargers, and that's also where we power the fridge from. All of that is fused again from the DC to DC charger to the battery itself, to ensure that there's no over amperages. And this is a 60 amp mini fuse right there. So all I do is I zip tied a spare fuse to it. That way, if it ever blows for whatever reason, we have an extra one. So everything, as you can see, is nice and tidy. We have some pre-wired grounds and positives coming out of the fuse block, so in case we want to ever add anything, we have that option. So everything's nice and neat, and I think the setup's pretty good. So I did make, because this is open and Sam the dog is in the back, We did make a panel out of plywood on a hinge, and then we put a Built Right Industries MOLLE panel there to kind of hang some stuff on if we want to. But it also primarily serves just to keep SAM or any cargo or anything from getting into the electrical system. So you still have access to the battery switch, which turns the battery power on from the alternator to the DC to DC charger, and easy access to anything else. So I'm pretty happy with the setup, pretty happy with all the connections. And again, for the previous video, we did show the install of the ARB compressor that sits right there in the more off-road bracket. In the previous video, you can see the battery and all of the electronics and stuff were sitting down there. And I really didn't like that location. The DC to DC charger was getting really hot just because of the way it was mounted, and a couple of folks pointed that out to me, so we tried to relocate it so it was working the way that it's supposed to. So it's sitting vertically so the heat can dissipate up and out of the way, so this doesn't get as hot from doing the work that it does. All right, so that was a brief overview of our electrical system. If you have any questions or comments, please put them down below and I get back to you as soon as I can. So this is Fisher Jeep Adventures. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you out on the trail.